you had to show the British in a nice way that they were, peacefully we kept asking, quit India, quit India. One day they just got bored and said, okay, chalo, I will quit India and go. It was not so simple as that. So I think somewhere you needed to show this as a very nice, it's a great, as I said, Oscar winning movie, Attenborough's movie, which gets all the global eyeballs. It shows India in a nice image that we were very non-violent. We didn't have, very peacefully we got our freedom. And also it shows our colonial masters in good light. So it was a win-win situation for both. And that's why in the process, so many people who actually sacrificed their lives and everything by leading the armed struggle, their names till today will be dubbed as revolutionary terrorists and not as freedom fighters.
I think it's got Anu Kapoor, if I'm not mistaken. He plays Veer Savarkar. And it's a Malayalam film that's dubbed in Hindi. In Kalapani, which was the jail in the Andamans.
Yeah. And you spoke about Kalapani, Ranveer, and the atrocities there, not only to Savarkar, but all the other, only the revolutionaries were housed in Kalapani, mind you. No single congressman was sent there. Kalapani, to me, Ranveer, I think is one of the most horrific. It was the Indian Bastille, so to say. One of the most horrific aspects of our history, which unfortunately we don't talk too much about. I remember going there for my research for Savarkar, and just the energy of that place. And as someone who's sensitive to energies, you can literally feel the kind of suffering that your ancestors who fought for the freedom of this country faced when, they were holed there. There were more than, 300, 400 revolutionaries, largely the people who were holed up in Kalapani, along with the hardcore criminals and rapists and murderers and all that, were the revolutionaries. Congress people never went to Kalapani. This was like the worst of the prisons, and the inhuman tortures, they are unspeakable. The basic human rights, facilities of good food, good drinking water, or toilet facilities, that also was not given to these people. There was punishments of standing handcuffs, your legs tied up for weeks and months. And most of the food that was given, that would have pieces of reptiles and whatever in it. So eating most of that, most of the people would, get diarrhea. But there were fixed timings to go to the loo. And so at any other point of the day, if you needed to ease yourself, you couldn't go to the toilet. And so most of the prisoners, they would defecate and urinate in their own cells. And you had to sit and, sit down or sleep and even eat amidst your own squalor, which would have been a, soul-sapping experience. And then this Koluka Bail punishment, as you mentioned earlier, where the bell that was there, the bullock that would be yoked to the oil grinding machine, instead of that, you would have the political prisoner who, in the blazing heat of Port Blair, would have to go round and round that and extract about 30 pounds of oil. And at the end of the day, that would be measured. And if it even 1 ounce less than that, you would be whiplashed, you would not be given food. They were given the worst of, clothes, which would cause skin rashes, leeches, biting into their skin, but no medical treatment given to them. Many of these were young people who were in their teens, late teens, early 20s, not more than 30. And the kind of tortures, lots of them actually committed suicide because they thought death was better than the kind of tortures that were meted to them. In fact, the British had also started an entire asylum in this place called Huddo Island near Port Blair, because many of them went mad because they could not bear the kind of tortures that they gave them. They were not given newspapers to read initially. They were not given papers or pen or anything.
And I saw this as a 4-year-old, man.
Wow.
Yeah. I was just like, whoa, what has gone on in this country before I got here? Just show what's the truth about Veer Savarkar that Indians should know.
There was a man who started India's first organized secret society, which was called the Abhinav Bharat. Initially Mitra Mela, which later became Abhinav Bharat. He led the first ever student bonfire against foreign clothes. When we talk of bonfire, we only think of Gandhi and the bonfire of clothes. But in 1905, as a student of Ferguson College in Pune, this man had done that, for which he even got rusticated from college. And then 5 years that he was in London as a law student, he led literally the revolutionary movement, sitting there, and got all these other people I mentioned earlier who were there with him, Shyamji Krishna Verma and all of them, into this entire movement. and wrote this seminal book on the, after researching British documents on the 1857 uprising, gave it a respectability by calling it the first war of Indian independence. And that book, Ranveer, became literally the Bhagavad Gita for all future revolutionaries, whether it was, Bhagat Singh, who got the second edition of it published, or even Rash Bihari Bose and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who got it translated into Tamil and Japanese and all kinds of languages, and how a revolution needs to be structured. The entire prescription was there in that book. So someone who had contributed so much, and 12 long years in Kalapani, 2 years in Indian mainland jail, so 14 years of imprisonment. And then 13 years after he comes out, he's kept under captivity and house arrest in Ratnagiri in Maharashtra, where he could not even go out of the borders of Ratnagiri. So just imagine a young man who is so wanting to become a barrister, goes to London, is caught by the British and unfairly tried, and 27 years of his life are snuffed out. His degrees are snatched away from him. The law degree, the graduation degree from Ferguson. So on paper, he was just a metric pass. His entire family property confiscated. And so when he and his elder brother go away to Kalapani, the women of the family, they literally had to beg, to eke out a livelihood. They didn't, even utensils were taken away and auctioned, literally brought to the streets. So this is a sacrifice not only of him, but also his entire family, his wife, his sister-in-law, and all of them, Yeshu Vahini, and all these people. And so easily today, sitting in air-conditioned rooms, people pass judgment saying he was a traitor, he was a stooge, and all of that, which I think is grossly unfair.
What is their argument?
I mean, the fact that is mentioned that he wrote mercy petitions to buy out his, liberty from jail and so on, which I think is a flawed argument, because these were petitions that commonly a lot of political prisoners wrote those days. It was not something that exclusively he wrote. And in my book, the first volume of the 2-volume biography on Savarkar, I have mentioned all the petitions in toto. There were 6 or 7 that he wrote. So just like you can have a lawyer, or today you can have a bail application, a lot of people used to file up, these petitions which were applications. And in those petitions, your viewers can actually read those, and there was nowhere an apology. In fact, the British records themselves say that when they came, one man called Reginald Craddock, who comes all the way to interview him, he in his official jotting says, I interviewed Mr. Savarkar, and he shows no regret or repentance or remorse for what he has done. So why would the British want to write that about him if he could have prostrated and said, Mai baap, mujhe chhod do yahan se. So, but he didn't do that. So, and then most of these petitions, he was also filing on behalf of other younger people, young revolutionaries who didn't know English, who didn't know the law. So this man was called Bada Babu, who had studied, law, and who knew English, and he could be their spokesperson. So in fact, in a 1917 petition, he says, if my name constitutes an obstacle in the release of all the other prisoners, then delete my name and release the others, and that would give me as much pleasure as my own release would secure. So that clearly shows he was talking on behalf of all the other people. But this is constantly brought out, to demonize him.